Now that we've created some basic text layers in After Effects, I want to show an approach to animating these layers using paths as kind of the input for that animation. So we talked last time about simple position animations and scale and so forth, but text has kind of this unique ability to be animated along a line. And this can create some kind of fun results, some a little bit maybe too zany for most animation purpose, but some fun results. So let's just jump right in. In order to animate text along a path, we first have to create that path. So I'm going to select this first layer, the Hi, I'm Matt layer. And with it selected, I'm going to use the pen tool and I'm going to create just a simple path. I'm going to click on the left side of my screen. I'm going to click on the top middle 3/4 of my screen, and then again off to the right, almost like making this like kind of hill in the distance. Now, since I did that, while this layer was selected, it's actually, if you'll notice, only showing up when that layer is selected. So if I select my other text layer, no path, select this layer, and I see my path once again. That's because what we did is actually we created our first mask. And now masks or clipping masks or any of that sort of description, usually we think means like clipping stuff out or hiding or revealing things. And masks can be used that way too in After Effects. But because we did this while selecting a layer and we didn't close our path, it's actually creating just a simple, almost like a simple line that we can then align our text to. So that kind of makes it a bit special. Now, if we didn't have this layer selected, if we had no layer selected at all, kind of like right now, nothing's highlighted, and we did this, you'll have to notice that we're actually creating a shape layer instead, and that's not our intention. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that and just kind of warn you that you have to select your text layer first when making that pen input. Otherwise, you're going to make a shape. So if you want to make a mask path, you got to make sure you select the layer first. Now that we've done that, a few things about masks. We can actually change its color by clicking that little icon. So if we want this to be a little bit more bold, a little bit more visible maybe, we can just change that color of that path by clicking on the color swatch. And that's pretty much it for right now. We're not going to get into these other features until we actually start adding masks. So let's instead go to my text layer. Now this is a new, or I'll actually call it more of a text dropdown. This is a new kind of subheading under a text layer that we haven't seen in our others. If you remember, we see these transform layers in our solids and in other layers like that, but this text heading is unique to text layers. And it gives us some really amazing options that we'll get into in the next couple of videos. The first of which is our path options. So the path option is the ability to align this text to that path, and it only shows up if we have a mask to assign to it, or rather it'll just be locked to the word none unless we have a mask to assign to it. So go ahead and click on that, assign your first mask, and notice that our type immediately aligned itself to that mask path, which is really pretty nice and novel. So we can do a few things with this now that that's done. First is we can reverse the path. So right now it's going to align itself to the top of the first point that we created. So that happens to be this one, and it's aligning to the top of that row. If we reverse the path, it'll align to the second or last point we created, and it'll align on the bottom of it. So there you have it. Why would you reverse your mask path? Well, maybe you created a circle around a logo and you want the type to be on the inside of the logo, perhaps. You might use this to make that change quickly. Perpendicular to path will align the letters either perpendicular to the path, meaning it's going to align it kind of straight up and down against the path angle, or it'll align it straight up and down based on your composition. So if perpendicular to path is off, then it'll just be straight up and down, just like your path, your text was before we even created that path. So I don't usually use perpendicular to path off very much. Usually it's on if I'm going to use this effect. Next, we can force alignment. This means that we're going to stretch our type evenly from the first point to the last point. With it off, it just aligns everything to that first point, which is over here on my left. Then we have the first margin and last margin options. Now these are quite fun to play around with. So first margin is going to be a small little vertical line over on the left hand side of my path, but the first margin begins wherever the first point is that you created. And the last margin is over here on the right. We don't really see anything over here because our text isn't long enough for it to actually reach there right now. So if we mess with last margin, we're not going to see much change. But if we mess with first margin by clicking and dragging it up, we are going to move our margin along that path perfectly based on the pixel data that we put in here. So 827 pixels or points away from that first point moves it to the right quite a bit. Now, why this is fun is this value can be animated. So if we hit our stopwatch and we move ahead 2 seconds and we set this value to 2000, then all of a sudden we have ourselves an animation of our type rolling along that hill, which is kind of neat. Now if we wanted the text to roll the other direction, we could easily start our first margin at 2000, putting it at the right hand side of my screen, and then animate that first margin to 0. So it kind of reads as though we're animating in reverse, and we kind of are. We're starting at that point and kind of the end, and then we're backing up to kind of get the end result. So when I hit spacebar, hi, I'm Matt comes in from the right side, which was our last point, and then kind of animates to the first spot. So it's kind of a different way of thinking of things perhaps, but a fun effect. Now that last margin is kind of used if we wanted to increase that last margin. Anything that was over here on the right, if we had a really long text file or something, you'd see that last margin kind of make an impact on our text, but not really useful for this demonstration. Now there's some more options here like anchor point grouping and some other things that we'll get into the next video, but that's the basics of animating to a mask or to a path. Now one other thing that I'll show is that animating to a mask is not necessarily final per se. You can still change your mask and move your mask while your text is on it. So it's not as though this path can't move once type's on it. In fact, it's really flexible and versatile. It's pretty kind of fun to manipulate that even after it's made. So if you want to align your text to the path, you can then use the arrow key to grab the different points on your path and move your type in a way, or rather move your path in a way that aligns the type exactly where you want it. So if you wanted some sort of like, radial design, or if you wanted a particular, kind of flourish, you could set this up almost after the fact, which is kind of fun and nice. That's pretty much it for aligning to a path, and we'll look at some of these more advanced features in the next video.